everybody, Allison here. We are on our baby moon right now, officially in our third trimester, or less than 90 days to go before the real work begins, trying to fit in one last vacation. Lynn is out surfing right now, and I, before we left, had the opportunity to interview the designer of the CYBUNKER. What is the CYBUNKER? Well, as I read in one article, it is a sleek and modern way to wait out the apocalypse. It actually came out during the same time as Tesla's Cybertruck, which got mixed reviews. It was supposed to be like utility of a truck with the convenience of a car, all electric. And the designer of the CYBUNKER says that the two were not necessarily related, happened to have this coincidental timing, but the CYBUNKER is supposed to be kind of, well, a place you could park your Cybertruck if you got one, but if you didn't, kind of an off-gridish opportunity for a living space, even if you want to stay in the suburbs. Interesting concept. Since we're on this off-gridish journey, I figured, why not ask him more about what he saw in the market that made him want to design this, what you can get out of it if you have the money for it, why you'd want one. So here you go. Here is the CYBUNKER. Did it just come out of what Tesla was doing, or did you guys already have ideas for a design like this?
No, that's actually a great question, and it might be the biggest misconception with the project altogether, and I know it might, I mean, to some extent we did kind of like ride that wave because we thought it was a great opportunity, and we saw certain conflicts with how the Cybertruck, for instance, I mean, one of the main things that we published, or that we thought about when we were publishing our project, was that, first of all, yes, there's the issue that the Cybertruck doesn't fit in a standard garage. That to us is actually secondary. It was headline grabbing. The other factor was that half of the people that own trucks do not live in rural areas, in urban areas or suburban areas. They actually live pretty off the grid if you look at it. So it was kind of ironic that you're having this this vehicle that is actually not suitable for the type of environment that it's going to be mostly used at. I mean, some people are going to say that this is going to be ultimately like your urban truck or something like that. But to your original point, we in LARS Bureau, we originally had all the intentions of working with modular construction and seeing what the future of off-grid living would look like. So this is actually something that we started way before the Cybertruck was even released. This was something that we already had the idea for, and I mean, it just happened to coincide with the whole Cybertruck thing, and we just incorporated pretty much the whole EV aspect to it. But yeah, but that was even the design language is also something that we typically use on our own projects, even though some people might see some similarities between the Cybertruck and our own design.
Got it. Okay, so can you give me the rundown on what is this CYBUNKER?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, it's a modular prefabricated unit that you could build on a remote location. So the main features that you typically don't find on other modular homes is, first of all, it's supposed to be a robust, deployable off-grid system. So that includes obviously the solar energy panels. That includes home batteries that are going to be all fitted within what we're calling a structural motherboard. Pretty much, essentially, it's just this sandwich at the bottom of that. It's not only the structural foundation of the CYBUNKER, but it's also where all the infrastructure and utilities are located, and the batteries and cisterns and pumps and even computers, because we're also trying to incorporate smart home and Internet of Things technology into this. So the main features are that, which are pretty uncommon on most modular homes that we see in the market right now. On top of that, it also incorporates something that most modular homes do not incorporate at all, which is a protected carport. Now, this is something that it might seem as a waste of structural space for most people, but the fact that this unit it doesn't only fit 2 or even 3 vehicles, but it's also capable of becoming more things than that. It could become your outdoor/indoor space, your terrace space, and things like that. So that's also a feature that we're pretty keen on. Now, lastly, or perhaps mainly, We are designing it to be a platform. So the one that we revealed online is the whole with the full bells and whistles, showing the living area, showing the protected carport. But what we're trying to get at from the get-go is this versatile platform that could be used not only for dwelling and the features that we showed on our public release, but also for storage, commercial use, hospitality, and even shelters for the government, FEMA, and even potentially just like replacement for barracks and things like that. So we want to do the full scope with our design.
Okay, and just so I make sure I say it right, it's the CYBUNKER, but the truck is the CYBERTRUCK.
Even when we're talking about it internally, it just slips out sometimes, but yeah.
What was sort of the trend among consumers and like lifestyle that you guys thinking like maybe this would be a profitable enterprise? I mean, what were you noticing about people's lifestyles that made you think, hey, this is something we should invest in? Because I mean, obviously, I'm sure this has been kind of a big, from time and money perspective, there's been a lot of work. So why do it? What did you notice would be the return on investment for this?
Excellent question. So if you look at the market trends right now, especially for modular construction, like I would say 80% of the new companies that are coming out, or even the existing companies that are refocusing their own market approach, are actually headed towards the urban environment. These are companies like Fullstack and others that are actually focusing on urban development. Now, that is entirely logical. I mean, it's estimated that by 2030, 2050, over like 75 to 80% of the population, at least in the United States, if not globally, is going to live in urban environments. So it might seem like a mismatch between the release of our product, the timing of our product, and where the industry is going. We don't see it that way. We see it the entirely opposite way. We see that precisely because so much of the intelligence and sustainable focus is going towards urban environments, we're dismissing that there's still going to be like 20 to 25% of the population who prefers to live not only rurally but off-grid, or they have properties elsewhere in the United States or internationally, where they do not have a fitting product or a product that is as modern as what could be available, right? And part of the whole thing behind the CYBUNKER and all the other ideas that we come up with is that we think that architecture and housing as a whole are lagging behind the entire industry and the entire technological progress that we're seeing with the rest of the market products, right? So we're trying to see architecture as another product that could be as user-friendly, as sustainable, and as futuristic to use that cliche, as pretty much everything else we're seeing in the market.
So is it kind of like the people who are not like us, who are like, okay, we want to spend a year renovating an answer, we want to figure out how to have a composting toilet and all this, and do this sort of 50-acre move out to the middle of nowhere? It kind of gives people who are still in an urban environment, maybe because they have their job there or they want the amenities of the city also, it gives them the opportunity to also kind of be a pioneer in that same way without necessarily having to flee the city.
Absolutely, and by the way, to that point, we even the initial considerations that we had for the design. Parentheses. So the CYBUNKER was also designed to be as an auxiliary unit for suburban homes, and it could be even used in certain urban environments. So and connected to the grid without having to have all the off-grid hardware. So that's one potential option, and we've received emails from people requesting that. But to the other point is that like 50% of the emails that we received, people state uses and potential uses and interest in the CYBUNKER that weren't even in our own realm of imagination, right? So people saying like, I have a property in Colorado that faces once a year like 135 mile an hour winds, and we cannot build something that's going to withhold, right? And we saw this, and this was entirely designed for that purpose, and it's designed to be off-grid. Now, so we've seen the entire spectrum of interest for our product, and like I said, like 50% of it we didn't even conceive initially, and we just it fits perfectly within these market niches that have just popped up in our inbox.
Real quick, what was your background before doing all this stuff? I mean, what were you doing before you were creating this?
So I founded LARS Buro, which is the design firm that created the CYBUNKER over a year and a half ago. I'm a trained architect. I've been working in New York City for a few years now. Before this, I used to work for a design firm, international firm called Scafito and Renfro. So my background and most of the team's background is in architecture and urban planning.
What stage is the CYBUNKER at this point? Like, where are you at with the work on it, and when could somebody potentially purchase one?
So as of now, we're in the design development phase of it, which means starting to take into consideration like major technical and engineering variables. We're in current discussions with potential manufacturers and seeing what is the most cost-efficient way of doing this, because it's not only, I mean, if it was just any architectural product, we could start building it tomorrow, right, given the funding. The challenge with the CYBUNKER is that we are pretty intent on taking this, on making it as transportable or mobile as possible, so that we could develop a product that could be potentially just take a few weeks to build it on site to the specifications that the customer requires, and then take it to the site. Now, to your question regarding where in the process we stand, so right now we're in the design/engineering phase. We are looking at prototyping phases later in the year, and hopefully by then we can get some specifications on availability and pricing to the customers.
Do you have any idea what the price range might be?
So we are completely hesitant and like tight-lipped on actually promising anything, because we do think, so we are intending on not only doing like the full bells and whistles that we showed on our public release, we also want to do a more scaled down version, because not like physically scaled down, but in terms of the features that it has and the technology that's behind it. And that version would be a lot more affordable than the full and project that we're doing, because one of the things that we learned from that impromptu survey from the people that emailed us was that many people just love the architecture but are not interested at all in the robustness of the structure or the solar panels even, or the EV compatible aspect of it. So for seeing that that's kind of like a big market in and of itself, we're thinking that we could do, like preliminarily, we could do just the heavy version and the light version. The heavy version being the one that you see with all the bells and whistles again, and the other one just being a more scaled down version, not physically, but in terms of what the attributes and specifications are going to be. And that one should be a lot more affordable, and probably that's the one that we're going to roll out the door first. But yeah, no promises on pricing as of now.
So I shouldn't necessarily put my credit card on hold just yet. When it comes to the when it comes to the way that it looks, do you guys have, is it all, like the photos that we're going to show, you know, the photos we'll see in the video, it does look very futuristic. Say someone says, I want the amenities of the CYBUNKER, but I want it to look a little different. Does it always come looking exactly like this?
So it depends on what the, at least from the engineering perspective, it might change a bit how it looks just from purely technical standpoints. Now, regarding the preference of the customer, we're thinking of this would be our pilot product for the company. This would be the first one that's going to be manufactured. So we are thinking that eventually we're gonna keep doing like marketing tests such as what we did last December. And seeing what people respond well to. Now, I must say that even though the language, same as with the CYBERTRUCK, was not to everyone's liking, people, I mean, it felt like a breath of fresh air to many people, seeing that most modular architecture just looks like boxes, containers, and mobile homes. So we kind of, we're betting on that horse to a certain aspect, that differentiation is good in a market that just looks entirely the same, right? Entirely homogeneous. So maybe to your question, for now, that's apparently the way that's going to be the overall looks. But in the future, we're thinking of a future product line that could be a bit more conservative or perhaps a bit more extreme.
Did you already go into the detail of what exactly it's made out of?
That's it. They're going to depend entirely on the manufacturing preferences and what's going to be more transportable. So right now, we have the opposite ends of the spectrum towards the selection of materials. On one end, we have lightness and transportability and affordability, and on the other one, we have the promise that we're trying to make of full robustness and weatherproofness, right, and being airtight. So along those spectrum, we have 200 different products that we need to narrow down. At the beginning, we thought that a steel, or at least something that could work like a chassis of a car, that could be the most efficient way, because steel, for however heavy people think it is, it's actually the lightest structure that you could get typically for most buildings, because you can get a lot more resistance with fewer materials and fewer weight. So there's no promises as of yet. So we're planning on getting a full release towards the summer or later in the year of all the specifications and hopefully the variants that are going to be available for purchase.
Do you see this as part of the tiny home minimalist movement, or do you see it as something totally different?
I think the tiny home movement is not so much of a movement as something that has always like latently existed within culture, and that's something I think the broader question would be towards people preferences regarding urban living and rural living, right? So that's irrespective of if they live rurally on a large beautiful home or if they live like in a cabin. I think the preferences are still there regardless of what the actual architectural offer is. To that point, I think that where people are going to be flocking the cities, that's at least the projections in the coming decades, if it's not happening already. I think that you are going to have like a rebound effect, and that's what we're kind of betting on. That's at least some people are still going to feel like either they have these secondary homes on the rural areas or just hospitality entirely. Now, one market that we're considering regarding the CYBUNKER would be that maybe 50% of the units that we actually sell are not for residential use, are not people that are just putting mortgages on these homes, but just like Airbnb type properties that people just go to these places to escape. These are places that you could have your electric vehicle off the grid and actually charge it in these stations. So we're contemplating all those opportunities and potential features in the future.
So then I guess who is your main audience? Like who are you after with this that would be representative of like the future CYBUNKER owner? So
when we did the market sizing, before unveiling and after unveiling, because it had to be adjusted due to the overwhelming amount of requests that we got. So initially we thought, okay, so this is going to be within the interest of people in the survivalist community, people who are willing to live off the grid, that want to live off the grid because either they already have the properties and cannot use them or haven't built anything on them, or people on the opposite end of the spectrum, people who actually live in cities but are looking for an alternative for living off grid and just renting these places within Airbnb or other type of so after we unveiled it and we started seeing the influx of emails of requests and people being pretty specific, not only just asking what's going to be the price and the availability, people saying like, this is what I'm facing, is this going to suit my demands? So within that spectrum, we saw people that either already have like their big suburban homes and just have like 15 acres and they want to build a garage for their cars. So people even saying like, okay, so I don't care at all about the interior like living layout. Just give me the empty version, and I'm gonna put my 4 or 5 cars in there. And half of them are electric, so we're gonna use it in that spectrum. So to your question, what we originally intended has just blown up our expectations for who the potential customers are going to be. Now it's our job now during this process to actually offer a versatile platform where people are going to be able to just go online and select the same way you do with a car and say like, okay, I want this type of layout, or I do not want a layout, I just want the empty shell because I want to use it as a protected carport, or I want to do it for my man cave. Some people just like outright, we put it tongue in cheek in the product description, but people said, no, I need a man cave. I want my man cave. I was going to build it myself, but I saw this and this suits me exactly. And they just want to have their pool tables and things like that in there. So it's a pretty wide spectrum.
Is there anything else that I didn't ask you about that you feel like is really important to what you guys are doing that you want people to hear?
No, I think so. The last thing would be that anybody that's interested in the product should reach us out at info@larsburo.com, and they can find us at cybunker.com for that specific product. And anybody that's interested, even mildly, should hit us up there, and we're going to send emails as we get updates along the way.
We talked price, and we're not throwing it out there yet, but do you think it will range enough that your sort of average middle-class American could afford one of these all the way up to somebody who might have a lot of money? Like, will it be in that range where you might see like the lesser version you were talking about, that somebody who's, you know, not necessarily a millionaire could afford one of these?
Yeah, so the short answer is we're working on it. The long answer is that we're looking at the market and we're looking at what the offer is, which ranges between about $200 per square foot to all the way to $700 per square foot. So we're trying to, our most basic version, the one that's not gonna have all the bells and whistles, to land within that margin, on the bottom end of the margin, even lower than that potentially, because we're trying to make this as cost efficient as possible. And then the other version, the most extreme version, which people have petitioned for, is actually going to run all the way up. So we're looking at probably the widest margin that you're going to see for this particular home regarding cost per square foot.
And could I hire you guys to turn my Airstream into a CYBUNKER?
I will consider it.
All right. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing this, and I'm excited to see how it goes.